Part 2. Roman Civilization. Like the Greeks, the early Romans didn't really distinguish between heterosexuality and homosexuality in the way that we do. It was normal for a Roman man to have sex with both men and women, and it was perfectly legal for him to sleep with prostitutes. There was a law which prevented a male Roman citizen from taking a passive role during sex, but this did not prevent him from sleeping with male slaves and non-citizens, which was considered normal and practiced by the vast majority of Roman men. The Roman attitude to sex was extremely casual in many ways. They felt that something as simple as sharing a meal would create a social bond between two people, but sex was no more meaningful to them than a handshake. Roman men were somewhat hypocritical. Although they were extremely promiscuous themselves, they expected their wives to be strictly faithful. Roman culture also forbade sexual relationships between women. Roman civilization flourished for many centuries and conquered most of Europe, large parts of the Middle East and Africa. After many centuries of greatness, the Roman Empire did eventually collapse, but when we examine the events and cultural changes that lead up to that fall, we see that their sexual practices are not the cause of it. In 312 AD, Emperor Constantine became the first Christian emperor of Rome. He began the process of converting the Roman Empire to Christianity. Emperor Theodosius after him continued this process and made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. He forced most of the Roman population to convert to Christianity. The culture of Rome rapidly shifted from pagan to Christian, and their sexual values became very conservative. In 390 AD, a law was passed which made homosexuality punishable by death. Fornication and adultery were also routinely punished by death. Strangely, Rome did not prosper with their new religious culture. The armies started to weaken, and parts of the empire began to collapse into the hands of barbarians. Rome herself was even sacked by barbarians on more than one occasion. A timeline of the significant events clearly shows how the rise of religion promptly brought about the downfall of Rome and the disintegration of the empire. I'm not trying to suggest that the persecution of homosexuality was the cause of the Roman disintegration. Rather, the persecution and their disintegration were both the result of a deeper underlying cause. Dogma and free rational thought are mutually opposed to one another. As Christianity was rising in Rome, their intellectual community was going into decline. Ramsay MacMullen, one of the leading historians on the Roman Empire, has written an excellent essay about this, which can be found in his book, Changes in the Roman Empire. MacMullen looks in detail at the work of numerous Roman writers and philosophers during the last few centuries of the Roman Empire, and he highlights a gradual shift in their thought from rationality towards superstition. The Library of Alexandria was the greatest repository of knowledge in the world at that time, and a great centre of learning. Theodosius ordered the destruction of several pagan temples which housed many of the library's books. It is hard to imagine how the turmoil and violence of this set back the intellectual development of humanity. Hypatia of Alexandria was probably the greatest intellectual of her time. She had travelled around the Mediterranean, learning philosophy, science and astronomy. She became a greatly admired teacher of all of those subjects. In 415 AD, shortly after the destruction of the temples, she was attacked by a Christian mob and horribly murdered. The incident illustrates how little regard the people of that time had for their intellectual elite. During the 4th and 5th centuries, the mighty Roman Empire gave way to an intellectual dark age. The final collapse of the political hierarchy of the Western Roman Empire was in 476 AD.